There are 47 files. Elena Vargas put them together before she disappeared, and they don't stay hidden. They find people. They found me. Since then, I've watched a plane fall out of the sky that no news station ever reported. I played a game once with 3 rules and watched people lose. I've seen the same black diamond carved into places it has no business being. And every famous face in those files isn't who you think they are. None of that is why I'm telling you this one. Last month, I woke up on my couch in clothes covered in dust from a place I've never set foot in. That was the first time I understood the files don't just show you things, they take you there. She was on Mulholland, up past one of the overlooks, past midnight. I caught the call myself. I was closest, so I got there first before anyone else rolled up. I'm not going to describe what that scene looked like in detail. I'll just say I took the drive off her before the second unit arrived, and I never logged it into evidence, and I never told anyone I had it. I filed my report like I hadn't touched a thing. That decision is the reason I don't carry a badge anymore. Not because anyone caught me, but because I couldn't keep showing up to a job that made me into someone who does that at a scene and then goes home and sleeps. I quit 4 months ago. I've had the drive that whole time. Tonight, I finally opened folder 14. It's a staff roster. Nothing dramatic about the formatting. Looks like something HR would print for a fire drill. But next to about a dozen names, there's a note in Vargas's handwriting. Same red pen she always used. Reported absent. Never rehired. Never terminated. No forwarding info. Over and over. People who worked crew and production jobs at one particular studio lot, going back almost 20 years. They show up on a payroll sheet one week and they're not on the next one. And nobody ever files paperwork saying why. At the bottom of the roster, underlined twice, an address in Burbank. A lot I recognized before I even looked it up. 20-some years of one of the most watched daytime shows in the country ran out of that building. It's been dark for a few years now. I told myself I just wanted to see it, drive past, that's all. I did not drive past it. The gate was standing open about a foot, chain hanging loose like somebody meant to lock it and got interrupted. Security booth empty. I want to say I hesitated longer than I did. Inside, it smelled wrong before I could tell you why. Not decay, cleaner than that, sharper, disinfectant maybe. Except that's a strange thing to smell in a building that's been empty for years. I remember thinking it was probably a cleaning crew. Some skeleton contract nobody bothered to cancel. I want that to still be true. Her old office door was unlocked. I don't know why that surprised me more than the gate did. It still had her name on a slid-in placard by the door, faded, half peeled at one corner. Desk pushed against the far wall, chair still turned like someone had just stood up from it. And behind the desk, I noticed the drywall before I understood why I was noticing it. It didn't look right. Slightly off color, slightly soft looking, like the paint hadn't fully dried in 20 years. I put my hand on it because I wanted to be wrong. It was warm. Warm like something with a pulse behind it, not warm like a wall gets from a furnace vent. It gave under my palm the way a stomach gives, not the way plaster does. I've replayed that 10-second stretch more than any other part of this. I keep trying to find the moment I decided to push instead of leave. I can't find it. There isn't a moment. I put my hand there, and then I was standing in a hallway that hadn't existed on the other side of that wall 5 seconds earlier. And the door was gone. And the light was that flat, fluorescent hum you only ever notice when there's nothing else to listen to. I checked my phone. 11% battery and no service bars. Just an empty space where the bars are supposed to be. Like the software gave up on pretending. I started walking because standing still felt worse. The hallway didn't end so much as it repeated. Same yellow wallpaper, Same water stain shaped like nothing in particular. Same door every 20 feet that I stopped bothering to try after the third one wouldn't turn. I kept one hand on the wall as I walked, which I know doesn't make sense, except it was the only thing that felt like it was still where I'd left it a second ago. The smell got worse before I found the room it was coming from. Not worse, like stronger. Worse, like it started meaning something. Disinfectant, and under it, something sweeter. That disinfectant is usually used to cover up. The door was already open a few inches. I didn't touch it. I don't remember deciding to go in either. 1 second I was in the hallway. The next I was standing in the doorway looking at a room that didn't belong anywhere near a television studio. Hospital furniture, but wrong. A bed frame with rust blooming along the joints, sheets the color sheets get when someone stopped bothering to bleach them. A rolling tray beside it holding a scatter of file folders, edges curled with damp. And a small chest cooler, lid cracked open, throwing a thin blue light against the wall. The kind of light you see off a fridge full of something that has to stay cold no matter what else in the building has gone to hell. Stamped on the side of the cooler, in block lettering half worn off, epidermal. No other branding, no batch number I could find, no manufacturer, just that one word repeated on every ampule inside when I looked closer, handwritten numbers on strips of tape underneath it. I looked in the cooler because I already knew I was going to, and there wasn't any point pretending otherwise. Rows of small glass ampoules. I've seen enough evidence lockers to know when something's meant to never show up on a manifest. This was that. I didn't touch them. The folders on the tray were worse in a quieter way. Names. Some I recognized from Vargas's staff roster, word for word. Reported absent, never rehired, never terminated. But mixed in with those were other folders, thicker, glossier, and when I opened the top one, I understood the room a little more than I wanted to. Before and after photos, the kind a plastic surgeon's office puts on a wall, except nobody smiles in either photo. And every face in the after shot belonged to someone I'd seen on a screen at some point in my life. I'm not going to list which ones. I'll only say that if you've ever looked at a famous face and thought it seemed a little too smooth, a little too unmoving around the eyes, I understand that thought differently now than I did before I opened that folder. I found a name in one of those folders I recognized for a different reason. I'm not going to say whose. I only know that once I saw it, I put the folder down exactly where I found it and backed away from the tray like distance could undo having read it. That's when I noticed the corner of the room I'd been avoiding without meaning to. A pile of children's toys, shoved half under the bed frame like someone had kicked them out of the way in a hurry. A teddy bear gone gray with grime, one eye missing, stuffing showing at a seam, 2 toy trucks, paint chipped down to bare plastic, wheels gummed with something dark I didn't look at closely enough to name. There was no reason for toys to be in that room. I don't have an explanation for them, and I'm not going to pretend I do. I've just never been able to stop thinking about them since. Not the ampoules, not the folders, the trucks. On the floor just outside the door, there was a strip of gaffer tape, the kind stage crews use to mark blocking. Faded, half peeled, but legible. Twitch. Mark III. I remember being almost relieved by it. A lighting mark. Something ordinary. I told myself some crew member years ago had a nickname, or it was shorthand for a scene transition, and I let that thought carry me another 10 feet down the hall before it occurred to me that nobody puts a blocking mark on the floor of a room like the one I'd just left. Somewhere behind me, faint, almost under the fluorescent hum, I started to hear music. Not a song exactly, a loop, 4 or 5 seconds long, repeating with the kind of clean edit you only get from something skipping on purpose, not by accident. I followed it because some part of me had already stopped expecting to find an exit and had started looking for something else instead. The hallway opened without warning into a room that looked, of all things, like a motel. A single bed with a floral spread gone dull with age, a television playing static with the sound off, a strip of light under a bathroom door that didn't lead anywhere I could confirm. And standing in the middle of it, facing away from me, very still, except for a faint tremor through his shoulders, was a man I recognized immediately. Stephen Twitch Boss. He didn't turn around. He didn't move at all, except for that small, steady shiver, like something underneath him was idling. I said his name once, quietly, and the tremor stopped for exactly as long as it took him to not answer, and then started again, like I hadn't spoken. I didn't go any closer. I didn't have it in me. I backed out of that doorway the same way I'd backed away from the folder, and the last thing I saw before the hallway swallowed the room behind me was his shoulders starting to shake harder, faster, like whatever was about to happen to him had been waiting for an audience. I kept walking, 20 feet on. The hallway opened into a room with a table. The music led me past a doorway before it led me to a room which I didn't understand until I was already looking through it. Small space, no bigger than a supply closet stretched wide. A single figure stood in the middle of it under a wash of stage light that had no visible source, moving through the same 4 counts of choreography over and over. Turn, step, arm out, freeze, then back to the start like a scratched disc. I recognized him the way you recognize someone you've seen on a screen more than in person. He never looked at me. He never looked at anything. His eyes were open the whole time, and they weren't tracking the room, weren't tracking his own hands, weren't tracking anything I could find. I stood there longer than I should have. Long enough to notice the loop wasn't perfectly clean. Every 9th or 10th rotation, there was a half-second stutter, like a frame dropped, like something underneath the performance was trying to surface and getting smoothed back over before it could. I kept walking. I've turned that decision over since, whether stopping would have done anything, whether he'd have noticed me stopping, and I don't have an answer. I only know that staying near that stutter made the back of my throat go tight in a way I didn't want to investigate. 20 feet on, the hallway opened into a room with a table. 2 chairs facing each other, the kind you'd find in an interview room more than a dining room. Metal legs, table bolted to the floor, a mirror on the far wall that I already knew wasn't a mirror. And sitting on the far side of it, hands folded on the table in front of her, was Elena Vargas. I want to describe what I felt walking toward that chair, and I can't do it in order. Relief first, stupid and immediate before I could stop it. Some animal part of me just registering there's someone I know before the rest of me caught up. Then the wrongness underneath it, arriving late, the way it does in dreams where you already know something's off before you can say what. I sat down across from her because I didn't know what else to do with my body. She looked exactly like she had the last time I saw her breathing, which was a problem I didn't let myself think about yet. I started talking before I decided to. I asked her why she gave me the drive. I asked her what she knew about this place, about the folders, about the ampoules in that cooler. I asked her if she'd known at the end that I was the one who'd find her, and whether that's why she trusted me with it instead of anyone still wearing a badge. She nodded along to all of it. Not vaguely, precisely, at exactly the right beats, the way you nod when you're actually listening to someone and following every word. Her eyebrows moved at the sad parts. Her mouth did the small, compressed thing people's mouths do when they're holding back a response out of politeness. She never said one word. I kept going anyway. I think some part of me needed her to break first, needed one sentence out of her badly enough that I just kept handing her more to respond to. I asked her about the night on Mulholland. I asked her what her hands had looked like when I found her, because I still don't know why I asked that, except that I'd never said it out loud to anyone, and some part of me wanted it to finally cost me something. That's when the sweat started. Small, at her hairline first, then along her collar. The kind of sweat that shows up on someone holding a pose too long, someone straining to keep something in place through sheer will. Her expression didn't move. It just started costing more to keep still. Her hands were folded wrong. I noticed it distantly, the way you notice something's off in a photograph before you can say what. Fingers laced away, hands don't naturally lace. Thumbs tucked under instead of crossed over. I'd seen that exact position before. I didn't let myself finish that thought at the table. I've only let myself finish it since, alone at night, when there's nothing else demanding my attention. I asked one more question. I don't remember which one. She looked down at her hands, and whatever had been holding her face together let go all at once. Not into anything monstrous, just into nothing, into stillness, into a woman looking at her own hands like she'd never seen them before. I got up. She didn't follow me out. That was almost worse than if she had. The next room had a table set for dinner, which should have been the strangest thing I'd seen all night, and somehow wasn't. White cloth, 2 settings, candles burning without dripping wax anywhere. Ellen was already seated, hands folded the normal way, watching the doorway like she'd been expecting me on a schedule. Behind her, along the wall, something moved that took me a second too long to place as a person. Anne H., pressed flat against the wallpaper, sliding whenever Ellen turned her head, always staying just behind her shoulder, no matter which way she faced. I never saw her walk. I only ever saw her already arrived somewhere new. I sat down because standing in the doorway felt like the more dangerous option, which tells you something about my judgment at that point. Ellen smiled the way I remembered her smiling on television, except held 2 seconds longer than a real smile holds. She said my name. I won't repeat how she said it, only that I'd never heard 3 syllables carry that much weight. She gestured at H behind her without turning around and said something like, "She's always so close, isn't she? I like her close." Then she reached out, almost gentle, and took a piece out of H's shoulder the way you'd pull a piece of bread off a loaf. H didn't scream. She didn't even stop sliding along the wall. Ellen put it to her mouth and said something I've tried to get right every time I've told this and never fully can. Something like, "If you close your eyes long enough, it tastes like beef jerky." I'm not sure that's the exact sentence. I've told this differently before. I only know the feeling of it hasn't changed, even when the words have. She looked at me and said, "She loves this, you know. All you think she loves? She loves this." Then, quieter, "Smile for me." I didn't. She reached across the table and did something to my face that made me smile anyway, and I felt it more than I understood it. A forced, aching stretch that had nothing to do with anything I was feeling underneath it. Then she stood up, slow, unfolding, chair scraping back on its own without her touching it. She said, almost kindly, "Do you want to be kind? Or do you want to be my kind?" And then it stopped being a sentence at all. Be my kind, be my kind, my kind, my kind, flattening out with each repeat until it wasn't words anymore so much as a rhythm, and the rhythm was moving toward me. I ran. I don't remember standing up. I remember being in a hallway that hadn't been there when I sat down, and behind me a thump, heavy and even, not hurrying, never needing to hurry because it never fell behind either. I took turns I didn't choose so much as fell into. I don't know if I was retracing steps or going somewhere new. I've never been able to make that make sense since, and I've stopped trying. I hit a door with my shoulder because I didn't have time to find the handle, and I went through it into light so bright it hurt, and hands in thick white gloves caught me before I hit the floor. Figures in hazmat suits, maybe 6 of them, moving around a space full of steel tables and equipment I didn't have time to identify, and none of them looked surprised to see me. One of them said something into a radio clipped to their collar, a number, not a name. And then someone put something over my face, and the last thing I remember is the hum of that room fading out under my own pulse. I woke up in an office that smelled like a warehouse trying to be a hospital. Drop ceiling, folding chairs, one window painted over from the inside. 2 people came in first. They didn't say anything to me. They looked at each other, said something too quiet to catch, and left. Then I heard it through the door before I saw her. A doctor's on his way. The door opened. A woman sat down across from me, unhurried, and for a second I thought I recognized her from somewhere that had nothing to do with any of this. She didn't say much, just enough. "Freddie's back," she said. "I need your help."